Camera zooms in on Amy, looking furious, her face twisted with betrayal. She slams the door shut behind her as she storms into the living room, eyes locked on Bambi, who is sitting nervously on the couch. The tension is thick. Amy points at Bambi with a shaking finger. Scene opens with a serene morning setting, birds chirping outside. Amy walks into the living room, phone in hand, scrolling casually. She comes across a post on social media. A picture of Bambi smiling, hand on her stomach, with a caption, "Excited to share our news." Amy's face drops as she recognizes the man next to Bambi in the photo. It's her ex-boyfriend, Jason. The reality hits her like a ton of bricks. Her hands tremble as she zooms in on Bambi's growing belly. Amy storms over to Bambi's place, her thoughts racing. Flashbacks of her relationship with Jason, the promises, the betrayals, and now, this. Amy bursts through Bambi's door without knocking. Bambi is sitting on the couch. The room is quiet, except for the sound of Amy's boots stomping across the floor. Bambi looks up, startled, trying to smile weakly. "Call me? Call me? You think I want a phone call from you after this?" Holds up her phone showing the picture. "Are you seriously pregnant with Jason's baby? How long were you hiding this from me? Not like that? Oh, really? Because it sure looks like you're playing house with my ex and carrying his child. You know how much I've been through with him. You know how much he hurt me. I didn't plan this, Amy. It just happened. Jason and I reconnected after you two broke up. I never meant for it to hurt you, but we love each other. It's complicated, I know." Love? You're calling it love? You're gonna sit here and tell me that while you carry his baby? Do you have any idea how I feel right now? I do, Amy. I know this is hard to understand, but I didn't know how to tell you. You're my friend, and I never wanted to hurt you. You've always been there for me. Friend? Is that what we were? I don't even recognize you anymore. How could you do this to me? How could you betray me like this, Bambi? Amy's anger starts to boil over, but it quickly shifts into deep hurt. Her voice cracks as she stares at Bambi, her heart breaking. Do you know what it felt like when Jason left me? How I tried to keep everything together. He was my first love, Bambi. And now, you're having his baby. I don't know how to process this. Bambi stands up slowly, moving toward Amy, her own tears starting to form. I never wanted to be the person who hurt you, Amy. I didn't want any of this. But I couldn't ignore what was growing between me and Jason. I thought maybe, just maybe, it was something real. Real? What does real even mean anymore? You betrayed me. My own friend betrayed me with the man I loved. The silence in the room is suffocating. Amy's anger is now gone, replaced with a quiet sadness as she stands there, staring at Bambi. Bambi is shaking, her voice desperate. Amy, I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you, but I'm not going to apologize for loving Jason. I'm not. I just hope one day you'll understand. You really think I'll ever understand this? You really think we can just go back to being friends after this? Amy looks around the room, as if trying to find some way to make sense of everything. She grabs her jacket and heads toward the door. I can't do this. I can't look at you anymore. I need space. I need time to figure this out. I never thought it would be you. Bambi stands there, motionless, as Amy walks out the door, slamming it behind her. The camera pans out, leaving Bambi standing alone in the silence of the room, her hand resting gently on her belly, tears rolling down her cheeks. Weeks pass. Amy has distanced herself from both Jason and Bambi. She's been coping with her pain, focusing on herself, but she knows she has to make a decision. A text message appears on her phone from Bambi. Amy stares at the message, unsure of what to do. Her heart aches, but she knows she needs to heal first before she can even consider forgiveness. The screen fades to black, leaving the question hanging. Will Amy ever forgive Bambi? Or is this betrayal the final end to their friendship? Amy had always been fiercely protective of those she loved, loyal to the core, and always ready to fight for the people who mattered most to her. Confrontation was never something she shied away from, but nothing could have prepared her for the shock of learning that Bambi, her longtime friend and former ally, was pregnant by Amy's ex-boyfriend. It hit her like a bolt of lightning. The emotions that Amy had long kept bottled up suddenly erupted. She and Bambi had shared a deep connection, one that had endured many trials over the years. They had laughed together, cried together, and stood by each other through thick and thin. But nothing could have prepared Amy for the revelation that Bambi was carrying the child of a man who had once been so intricately woven into both of their lives. The fact that Bambi was involved with her ex, a man who had caused so much turmoil in both of their pasts, was the last thing Amy could have ever anticipated. When the news hit, Amy couldn't hold herself together. She had spent countless hours listening to Bambi vent about her struggles with men, offering her unwavering support through the highs and lows of her romantic life. Amy knew exactly the kind of pain that came with being involved with him. In the past, he had been manipulative, deceitful, and at times, downright cruel. He had left deep emotional scars on both women in different ways. To hear that Bambi, after everything she had endured, was now carrying his child, sent Amy into a whirlwind of emotions: anger, confusion, betrayal, and disbelief. Once Amy heard the news, she couldn't sit back and do nothing. She knew she had to confront Bambi. There was no way she could let this go without at least expressing the immense hurt and shock she was feeling. It wasn't just about the pregnancy, it was everything that came with it. How could Bambi, someone Amy had always considered a close friend, someone who had been through so much, return to the very man who had brought them both so much pain? Amy couldn't comprehend it. It felt like a direct slap to everything they had worked so hard for, to all the progress they had made in their lives. Her mind raced as she tried to make sense of the situation. She couldn't understand why Bambi would make such a decision, especially after all the emotional pain and heartbreak she had already endured with the kids. The sense of betrayal stung deeply, almost like a betrayal of their friendship, a betrayal of the countless nights Amy had spent comforting Bambi, listening to her heartache and offering guidance. To Amy, this wasn't just about the man involved. It was about the values and principles they had always tried to live by. In this case, Bambi's actions felt like a direct contradiction to everything Amy had once stood for. Fueled by a mixture of frustration and profound betrayal, Amy sought Bambi out. Determined to get answers, she needed to understand why Bambi would choose to take this path once again. The tension in the air was palpable as Amy approached her, her anger simmering just beneath the surface. She had tried to keep her emotions in check, but this was too much to bear. The initial shock had turned into pure fury, and Amy was ready to make sure Bambi understood just how hurt and disappointed she truly was. When the two women came face to face, the conversation quickly escalated. Amy's voice wavered with emotion as she demanded to know why Bambi would choose to have a child with a man who had only ever brought chaos and heartbreak into their lives. Her frustration wasn't just about the pregnancy itself. It was about what it symbolized: the inability to grow, to move past the toxic patterns that had held them both captive. Amy couldn't bear the thought of Bambi repeating the same mistakes, of falling back into the arms of someone who had hurt her so deeply. Bambi, in contrast, was taken aback by the intensity of Amy's reaction. She had expected some level of disappointment, but nothing as overwhelming as this. She understood that her decision wasn't easy to grasp, but it was hers to make. She had her own reasons for choosing this path, reasons that were complicated and deeply personal. Despite her best efforts to explain herself, it seemed that nothing Amy said could be reasoned with. The anger and sense of betrayal Amy felt ran too deep to be overlooked. Bambi tried to defend her choices, but the weight of Amy's disappointment lingered heavily in the air. The argument escalated, growing louder and more intense as both women vocalized their hurt. Amy felt betrayed, not just by Bambi's actions, but by the fact that someone she had trusted and cared for appeared to be repeating the same mistakes. For Bambi, the emotional toll of being criticized by someone she thought truly understood her pain was overwhelming. She was caught between defending her choices and accepting the hurt she had caused those she cared about. The situation served as a painful reminder that some wounds are impossible to heal. Sometimes, even the strongest of friendships can crack under the weight of unresolved emotions. For Amy, this moment represented the culmination of everything she had feared. It wasn't simply about the pregnancy. It was about witnessing someone she loved fall into a pattern that had caused so much pain in their past. It felt like watching a friend walk straight into a trap, and Amy was powerless to stop it. Her anger wasn't born out of malice, but rather as a reflection of her own fear for Bambi's future. She didn't want to see her friend fall into that same toxic cycle once more. She couldn't bear the thought of seeing her hurt again. For Bambi, it was a moment of realization that the choices she made would never be fully understood by everyone around her. It was a painful moment of self-reflection, as she came to terms with the fact that not everyone would be able to support her decisions, even with the best of intentions. The love and trust that she had once shared with Amy now seemed fractured, as though their bond could never truly heal from the weight of this betrayal. As the argument reached its peak, both women stood there, emotionally exhausted, unsure of what would come next. Amy's anger, though completely justified in her eyes, fractured their friendship, and Bambi, though firm in her decision, now carried the heavy burden of disappointment in her heart. The future of their friendship seemed uncertain, clouded by the painful truth that sometimes love, whether romantic or platonic, cannot always withstand the complexities of personal choices.